Okay, so thanks for joining me here on episode 4 of my wee fly tying for beginners series. So you'll see in the vise I have the Blay and Black from a previous episode. So I'm just going to swap that round for the next hook, which is the same as the last video. It's a Kamasan B175 size 10. So I'll just put it into the vise, tighten it up, straighten it up a wee bit. There we go. And the thread I'm using is same as the last video, Kamasan Unithread 80 in black. So I'm just going to bind on a few mil back from the eye and bring my thread down and touch and turns using my waist tag to help everything keep in line and smooth. So just taking the thread down to between the point and the barb. Just if you're not sure, drop it and let it hang, and that'll give you a good measurement. So at this point you can either come in and trim off or just break the thread. It should just pluck off. So for the tail, I have here some golden pheasant topping, dyed hot orange. So I'm just going to peel off probably half a dozen or so fibres. So pluck them off and hold them with your finger and thumb. Change sides. Just measure the length for our tail, which is about the length of our shank. So we want to be coming in just behind that middle black barn. So again, finger and thumb, just holding it, using your index finger to hold it on top of the shank, just to stop it from sliding around whenever you're tightening down onto it with your thread. And then get a few tight wraps of thread onto it. Just come in and trim off our waist, and we'll bind that all down tight. There we go. Don't worry too much if there's a bit of the orange showing through. We'll cover it up on the way back down again. So for our rib, we're going to be using some silver oval uni-French. We'll just catch in the length of that on my side, and again aim for touch and turns coming down. Nice smooth body. Just in this video we changed from the last one where we're going to be using silver tinsel instead of the floss. The floss is very forgiving and it's very good for covering things up, and it lies nice and flat. If you've got a few bumps in your body, the floss will go over it and you won't really notice it, whereas silver the Mylar, you just don't have that luxury. So I have a length about 6 inches here pulled off. Now I like to turn it facing, it's silver on one side, gold on the other, so you have the option of using both. But for me, if I want silver on the outside, I'll turn the silver to myself, come in, trim a bit of a taper or a bevel into it, and then turn it round so the gold side's facing out, just down near the tip. Get a couple of turns of thread over it and bring your thread back up to the head. So at the minute when your Mylar's tied in, you're going to be looking at the gold side, which is the opposite colour to what you need, and then just take it, and as you're wrapping it, the silver will be on the outside. So overlapping turns, taking care that none of the black thread is showing through the body. I suppose if you were unsure how well everything was going to lie, if you'd have tied it with white thread underneath, that would probably get you away with a bit more, whereas if some of the tinsel slid, the white wouldn't be as noticeable as the black. I'm just sort of hoping that there's no black showing through on the camera side. There's a little bit there, so right. So I'm just going to come in now and a few turns of thread over the tinsel, making sure it's well bound down. You really don't want it slipping at this stage, and then coming in on that side and binding everything nice and tight. So I turn my vise round a little bit just so as I can see to come in, in with the scissors and trim off the waist. And again, just take a few wraps of thread to make sure everything's bound down. And then with our silver rib, one turn over the top, over our tail, just to make that splay out. And then coming up the body, I think I see one gap there, or one bit of black showing through, so I'm going to try and mask that with my rib. And then there's 3 turns, 4, and catch in. So once you've that, a few turns of thread on that to hold it in place, trim it off, and then get it well bound down. Just bringing our thread back to where our silver body starts. Now for the hackling this, again same as the previous video, we're using black hen hackle. So we'll just strip off the flue, open up the tip, come in with my scissors and trim off, and then we'll tie that in. So 1, 2, 6 turns should hold it reasonably tight, and then catch the tip with our hackle pliers. So with our finger and thumb, folding the fibres back, touch and turns, or close to touch and turns, and just depending on how many or how dense you want your hackle, we'll go for that. Should be plenty, because I'm going to try and persuade some of those fibres in the top down as well. So get a few turns of thread over the top of our stock, trim off our waist, and then just anything that's sticking forward like that, using your finger and thumb, just bind it down. Even if you want to give it a rub with your thumb on the top, that'll help place everything down. There we go. Now for the wing for this fly, I'm going to be using some bronze mallard. I'm going to be doing a folded or a rolled wing. So again, just peel off any of the stuff you don't really need, it just gets it out of the way, and then aim to just tease those fibres to about 90 degrees from the stock. They should kind of line up. They'll not be perfect, but they'll be reasonably good. And then holding it with your finger and thumb, tear off. So then at this point I'll take the top third and fold it down in on itself, and then the bottom third I'll bring it up over the first third that I folded in. Hopefully that makes sense to you people. Sometimes it doesn't make sense to me. There's just a couple there that were hanging over. Get them removed. So you can see there, tips are relatively straight, got some nice markings on it, and length of our wing, for me I like it going sort of halfway under your tail. So we'll hold it just over the top of our shank, come in with my finger and thumb and pinch it down onto the shank, and then this is where you do your wing and loop. So you bring your thread up under, pinch it between your thumb and index finger, under your shank, back up again and pull up. So we'll do that a couple of times, pinch it under the shank, and as you pull up, let your thread slide down. Oh, slipped that time. There we go. And then, see what that's not too bad. So we'll come in now with a few tighter turns of thread just to bind it down. Yep. And then we should be good to trim off our waist here. You need to be careful with this one that you don't take everything too close to the eye, because then when you trim this off, you need a wee bit of room just to get these fibres bound down. That's not too bad there. I see a little bit maybe sticking out through, but in general it's not too bad. It'll do me for a fishing fly. I'd be happy enough using it. So just build up our head then, and then come in with our whip finish. Half a dozen or so turns, even a couple more, not do any harm. Pull our thread tight, come in and trim off. And there we have a mallard in silver. So if I just get my varnish here, a couple of coats of varnish, and that fly is done and dusted. So I hope you've enjoyed that wee video. I'm sure, as you've seen, the silver mylar is just a little bit harder to work with than the floss, but gives a real good appearance to the fly. You know, you have that nice shiny body, and you know, silver, well, obviously the silver and gold are on the same size, or on the same spool, so one's, it's just the same working with one as the other. And pearl, you could add a pearl body in that too. It would look quite well. Even the opal mirage, that would look quite well, especially with a black thread underneath. It would come out probably slightly green. So once again, thanks a lot for watching, and I hope you found it useful. See you next time.